Well, hi and welcome to a second video on work scheduling. This time we're looking at work items, which can be a forerunner to work scheduling. This video is recorded in August 2019 and it's based on our version released in 2019. I'll start by choosing a project. So I'll search clients and jobs. I will go and search for one particular job. Here it is here. So here's the job, a WQA audit of some sort. I'll first go and look at the tasks for this particular job. Now in your system they might be called stages or phases. In fact, you might have the word project stages up there, for example. You can modify that as perhaps you know under the system settings within Abtrac. Here we have a job of multiple stages, including a variation down the bottom here. And what we've done, we've set up some work items for the feasibility stage. So work items are smaller than stages or tasks. So you take a $10,000 piece of work, or 12 or 22, or getting even bigger, up to 30, and we say, look, that's quite a bit of work, there's quite a few hours involved there, we'll break it down into smaller bits and pieces. So we'll go and look at some of the work items that can be set up for each of these tasks. The easiest way to enter a task and indeed a work item, the way in which a lot of people do it now, is they will copy the tasks from a template job of the same sort. Now the template might be in fact another current job, or it might be a template job that's set up specifically for the purposes of copying. So what I can do, rather than rekey these tasks as we have done here, I can say, look, here's another audit job that we did a few years ago. That's the best example of an audit job that we've got in Abtrac. And what I can do at the same time is I can copy the planned work items for that particular job. Therefore, I get two things. One is I get the same commonality of naming from one job to the next, so people don't interchange the word feasibility, concept, preliminary, and nobody's quite sure what to call it. And so it achieves that result. And the second thing, of course, we can copy the planned work items and say, these are the little Lego blocks, the little pieces of work that we did for this particular project. We're going to do the same on this new project. I won't actually proceed with that because, as you can see, I've already got tasks here. So I'll step back out and we will look at the work items for this particular project. So I haven't actually copied them, I've manually entered them into this one for demonstration purposes. So here we're seeing for the feasibility task, we can see that we've got a few different little work items up and down here. If I go and choose one of them, I'll just choose the first one, for example. So here are the work items. The screen is presented in two particular blocks. The top bit here is the particular piece of work to be done. And what's actually happened with this one, it was entered on June 19. It was expected to be done by the end of August over here. So entered here, date entered, expected to be done by that particular date. And it was my responsibility to see that it was done. That's my name. So even if I'm not the person that does the work, I can give it to other people. Now, in fact, what I've done is I've scheduled it to myself down here. That'll turn up in my scheduled item. We looked at scheduled items and scheduled work in an earlier video. In terms of required fields, you need a non-zero number in here for the total hours. You can see that we can tick that down. So instead of 4 hours, if it was actually 40, then we could tick that down and run reports to say, look, it was a 40-hour piece of work, there's still 12 hours to do, for example. A second required field is a description of some sort, which can be as much text as you like. If I double click in there, it will open up a little pop-up and I can write a book if I want to. I think the limit is 3,500 characters. Another required field is the due date over here. If you're not sure when it's due, you can put out some hypothetical date. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter because, in fact, the driver of this particular work item is another required field, which is what we call the state. So as part of setting up work items or preparing to do so, you can set up what we call work item states. I can manage them from here, or I can also manage them under the administration maintenance page. I can manage them from here. So planned time state. If I go in through this menu, since I'm already on this particular page, we have states in two particular categories, if you like. One is that it's a state, an item of interest. In my system here, if a work item is new or in progress, I'm interested in it. If it's on hold, cancelled or completed, I'm no longer interested in it. It drops off the radar. It doesn't disappear. but it'll drop off the radar, drop off reports of things to be done because it's already either been done or cancelled or put on hold. Other people will go a bit more detailed than this, so instead of using new or in progress, they will put down priority. This is a milestone work item. You can use whatever words you want. Back in the other fields within the work item, a lot of our clients will use a solution. So in particular, if it was an issue on a site, we say, look, here's an issue here. We think it's X number of hours to be resolved, and this is how it was resolved. Some of our clients will keep comments, so I might put in my name as a reference. I'll say 16-2019. I can type in a comment here. A second thing that some of our clients do is they keep quite a list of comments here. So instead of just typing one into that box, I can have an ever-growing list of what happened to this item as it progressed through its life. Another thing that a lot of our clients will use are the payment details. So as with work item state, any of these other little boxes I can click on here. I can click on here and say, let's set up some payment statuses. So I might say quote sent, quote received, quote rejected. I can put it in there. Another couple of fields that people use are classifiers. So again, you can make them up yourself by clicking on the relevant little pencil beside the particular drop down. And this is where some of our clients will use milestone names or whatever else they want for this particular work item and all work items. So there's lots of different ways in which people use it. They might numericize the description so it comes out the way they want it. They might use a classifier to group them. And of course they can also use a work item group. So that's really the work item, pretty well every field on this page. Moving back off it, back into the tasks themselves. The reason people use them is that they can then go and look at under work scheduling. In a previous video we've looked at plan time. I can look at all the work items that are in Abtrac. And by default, Abtrac presents to you the items that are of interest only. And across a bigger firm, I've only got 19 here. You might actually end up with hundreds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm interested in the work items for which I'm responsible and that are due by a certain date. So if I say show me everything that's due by the end of August this year. So here are all the work items for which I'm responsible due by this particular date here. Clicking on this little drop down, just a little aside on how people can use the grids, for example. Now that I've chosen one date, I can choose a range of dates through here. And similarly over here, if I click on the responsibility, I can choose different people who are given work item responsibilities. So here's all these work items here. If I click back on number 11, I can click in it. Now what I've done with number 11, work item number 11, here it is up here, we alluded to it before. I've actually scheduled it, as I said, to myself. So I can go and see that work item in my schedule. If I come into here, open my own planned time. I've linked the work item, here's number 11 here, I've linked it through to here. As I showed in the first video on work scheduling, I might in fact have sent that work item to my timesheet one or many times until I've marked it as done, which I have done over here. Moving back into the bulk manage page, the sort of things people will do is look at them in a filtered state, and so every time I come in here, I want my name to be locked in here as a responsibility, and then I will adjust the state accordingly. I can save that grid layout. So the filtering is quite useful. I can then print that if I want to, preview it on screen or export it out to CSV. So there's quite a few different ways in which people use these. Finally, what I can do within Abtrac is by default, I'm looking at states of interest, and what I've done now is I've set it so that when I come in here, it's looking for work items for which I'm responsible. In fact, what I'm looking for here is something to do with the geotech report. So I can type geotech in here. I can say, I know it's not an item of interest anymore because I'm pretty sure it's been completed. And here it is here. So item number 75, I can go and look at that file, for example. It's for a different client, but I say, look, maybe there's some details in there of relevance. So the more detail you put in the work item in any of these fields, the more easy it is to find it and cross-reference it and benefit from it. In fact, you can see this geotech report here. It was due on the 28th of August. We've done it rather prematurely before the end of July, done down here. In fact, Annette hasn't noted her item is done. Maybe she's finishing it this very week. That concludes the second video on work scheduling, looking at work items, which if you like are a forerunner of work scheduling. So work items collate the lists of things to do across the whole company. by person responsible, by people in teams or offices, etc. And then those work items get allocated out as scheduled work to people until eventually they drop off the radar when they are, in this case, designated completed. That concludes this second video.